A new season brings new expectations and new hope. If you're a fan of a good franchise. Now, how are my expectations for the Chicago Bulls heading into this season as its opening day? We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you guys by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, y'all. I want to start this off. Usually I start this off with a bunch of news or whatever else, and we're going to have a little bit more of a chill, relaxed episode today, right? I want to talk about my personal expectations for the Chicago Bulls this year, and I'm going to go ahead and bury a little bit of the lead here. I don't have very many, and that's really kind of freeing when it comes down to it. I'm going to let whatever happens this season happen, right? You know, in the last few years, we've had expectations of competing for the playoffs, whatever else it is. I came into last season thinking that the Chicago Bulls could contend for a 6th seed. They may even be able to avoid the play-in. It didn't happen, right? And at the end of the day, the thing that I looked at coming into this, when I was building this episode, right, I did what I typically do. I started creating a list. I was like, these are my thoughts. This is the expectations for this. This is the expectation for that. And honestly, no. This year, it's about so much more than my personal expectations that can really be all brought together by wins or losses, right? That's not the most important thing for this Bulls team. Make no mistake about it. If this Bulls team exceeds expectations, has 40, 45 wins, whatever it is, I'm going to be right there celebrating, rocking and rolling, pumping my fists. I'm going to be super excited and animated, just like every other real Bulls fan should be, right? But that's just not the place that I personally am right now, right? I'm looking at this team, and I think that the bigger storylines are the development, right? The stories within the story, the X's and O's. It's more than just what's in the win column, what's in the loss column this year for the Chicago Bulls. Now, if they go through some things and they get the wins, great, right? But for the first time in a while as well, the Chicago Bulls have a young rookie in Modest Bucilis that I am extremely happy about. I'm extremely happy to see what this young fella goes and grows through this upcoming season, the mistakes that he makes, those type of things, because with the mindset that Modest Bucilis has, if he does make a mistake, if he does get cooked defensively, he does whatever else it is, I actually trust him to learn from those mistakes on the fly, right? So the young guys, Modest Bucilis being at the forefront of that. Julian Phillips, who had a really solid preseason as well. Super excited to see what he can bring during the actual regular season. Can he stay in that rotation for the Chicago Bulls, right? Things that I'm really, really excited about when it comes down to it. When it just gets to it. And then, of course, the story with the starters, right? Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu. What do these guys do after their career years last year? I think that's a hugely important part. Kobe White trying to remind or show the NBA last season wasn't a fluke. Ayo Dosunmu, despite going to the bench, I still think is going to be one of the most important Bulls this season. It's just great there. So it's kind of freeing in the sense that I don't have any expectations. And I know that may seem like a cop-out, right? I wish I can come here and tell you guys, like last year on Chicago Bulls Central, I did this thing where I invited every creator on and I had them do their win-loss projections. It didn't even cross my mind to do that this season, not because I don't love working with the Chicago Bulls creative community. I actually love it. It's one of my favorite things to do is to work with other Chicago Bulls creatives. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. But this season, it's like wins and losses didn't even cross my mind. It's not what it's about. We got so many storylines with this team, so many important ones, not just our narrative storylines, not just our storylines for writers or blog writers or podcasters, anything like that, like legitimate storylines that matter into the future of what this team is going to be, right? Josh Giddey and the season that he has matters to what his future is with the Chicago Bulls. Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, they matter to the future of the Chicago Bulls. Zach LaVine, and if he fits in, matters to the Chicago Bulls. So the biggest expectations that I have from this team, really, if we're talking about any expectations, it comes down to the coaching staff to do what they said that they wanted to do, to drill in a new system to these players' heads, right? That's the thing that I want to see when it comes down to. It's not about when. It's not even about Kobe necessarily averaging 26 points per game. Now, if he makes that leap, great, right? He was the most improved player of the year last year. And I think people need to understand that. I don't care if he didn't get the award. He was the most improved player in the NBA last season via role, output, everything. And so the one expectation if I do have from this team is just watching things grow, right? That would be the thing that disappoints me. If this Bulls team loses 60 games this season, I'm not really disappointed by that. But I would be disappointed if through losing those 60 games, we didn't see growth, right? If Kobe regressed, if Ayo regressed, if Josh Giddey looks like crap, right? If Modest Vucevic doesn't play or looks like crap as well, like even though Modest has a brighter future, right? Those are the things that would bother me more this season. And I get it. That's what we do as sports fans. We come into scenarios, we come into situations, and we look at it and say, all right, how many wins are we going to get here, right? Oh, let's have a debate. How many wins do you think the Bulls are going to get? You think they're going to get 30? I think they're going to get 42. Who's right or who's wrong? It's not about that anymore this season for me, for the Bulls. It's not just about that. That's not the most important thing for me right now for the Chicago Bulls team. It's the development. It's us to show that we have this young core that we can start developing through. That's the thing that I want to see right now. We'll see, man. I like a lot. And that's not to say that I don't like this team. I love the way that the Chicago Bulls have played offense this year. I love the game plan that we've heard about, the rotation balance. I love all these things so much that we've heard about. I love to hear from this team. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's this. If the Bulls have a terrible season this year, we still have something to gain from that. We got a top 10 protected pick in one of the deepest drafts in the NBA. And I tell you what, you talk about adding even Malik, or however you say his name, Hugo Gonzalez, Ace Bailey. You talk about adding any of those guys to this core to pair with Modest Vucevic, to pair with Kobe White, to pair with Ayo Dosunmu. Listen, I'm just as excited like we just won a playoff series, right? So it's just it's a lot different with this that we said. And listen, exactly. Listen, that's the way to bring this on. Shout out to Brandon Eljet for always being on top of just saying stuff plainly. Show me. That's my expectation. Show me. Whatever you show me, I'm going to believe. If you show me your team that can contend with the playoff teams, I'm going to believe it. If you show me you suck, I'm going to believe it. Right? If you show me that you're losing close games, but you're developing as you lose close games, I'm fine with that as well. I'm super fine with that. Wouldn't be surprised if we finish 11th worst record and we lose the pick. Listen, well, keep in mind, you're still in the lottery. So it really comes down to lottery luck. Either way, you need lottery luck because technically the Bulls can finish with the 8th worst record in the NBA. And if two teams pass them up in the lottery, we're still screwed. So either way, you need some lottery luck. You need some of that lottery luck in there. Terry Bailey, I think Acme just built a faster version of the 2021 team with PG Insurance. I really like this team. I think that's an oversimplification. Personally, this team has way more depth than what that team had, quality depth. And I think also it's easy just to say faster, but it's a completely different play style. It's not just faster, right? It's also the fact that we're moving without the ball, that we're actually cutting to the rim. We didn't do that even consistently then, right? Now, that team was a defensive dog. So I don't think that really, because we're not even going to scratch the heels of that team defensively. But I get what you're getting at, right? They have a lot of this. They have some of the similar pieces, some of the similar strengths, but it's the defense and the quickness, and also the fact that it's a bunch of youth. It's a big difference with that one. It's a big difference in that aspect of it. But I get and understand what you're getting at there. But overall, like I come into this the day of the first game day of the NBA season for the Chicago Bulls. And really, this is probably the most freeing feeling that I've had at the start of a season since I started podcasting for the Bulls, which I'm going into my 4th season covering this team. Not here on Locked On Bulls, but since I started Chicago Bulls Central, going into my 4th season covering this team. And this is the most freeing that feeling that I've had since then. I have zero expectations for this team, but I have hope. And the hope comes from the thing and the pieces that we have here. And I think that that's a big thing. But all right, we're going to go ahead and take a brief break. We're going to get into the next topic, in which I want to talk about how the Bulls can avoid injuries and how some of the things Billy Donovan said could help the Bulls stay a healthy team coming into this year. But first, we got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that's FanDuel. All right, Bulls fans, you guys know FanDuel is one of the most consistent sponsors we have here over at Locked On, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It just streamlines the process and makes it so much easier on you that you can do everything all on one page. You can get your analysis, get your stats, get your live play-by-play. You can get everything that you need to make an informed bet on the same page where you place your bets. That just makes everything easier on you. Not a lot of betting sites are offering that, in Sportsbook, which is America's #1, FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, is offering you that. Plus, on top of that, you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. No ifs, ands, or buts about it when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do for that is go over to FanDuel.com. Again, that's FanDuel.com to get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. Tell them Haize sent you. All right, Bulls fans. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls and making us your first live listen every single day. And I can't stress enough how much it's just added a different dynamic to the show to do this show live every single day. That's not to my podcast listeners that listen to it after the fact. We still love you guys. You guys are still an important part of the show. But I'm just telling y'all missing out on a little bit if you're not checking us out live. That's all I'm saying. You gotta check us out live. That's all I'm saying. But with that said, Billy Donovan, we talked about on yesterday's episode how Billy Donovan has committed to 2 things that I think are going to help the Chicago Bulls stay a lot more healthy, right? Well, I didn't talk about that aspect. I'm talking about that aspect today. But the 2 things that we talked about yesterday is Billy Donovan committing to a 10-man rotation and then committing to he wants to avoid players playing 10-minute stints, right? And while that's not, let me be clear, nothing guarantees health in the NBA. A player can play 5 minutes, step on the court, and break their ankle. It just can happen, right? So there's nothing you can do to guarantee that your team avoids injuries. But controlling things, it can put you in a situation where you can lessen the chance of some of those injuries. On top of already, right, Billy Donovan wants the Chicago Bulls to be the best conditioned team in the league. So that right there, having the conditioning that's needed, the stamina that's needed to run up and down the court, to play such a high, fast-paced offense that the Bulls are trying to play is already important. That conditioning is important, but these are NBA players. They should be in some of the best condition that of any athlete in the world, outside of Kenny Lofton Jr., because he just doesn't care. But outside of that, I think that using more depth regularly for a team that is going to be playing faster helps keep your team a lot healthier, right? It helps keep your team in a place where because you are controlling their minutes, no more than 10-minute stints, because you're using more players more regularly as well, right? That does a couple of things for you. It can help you avoid injuries, but also that next man up mentality. We've talked about that before with this Bulls team. It breeds that into your roster, right? If you're going 10 deep, it means that even your player that's your 11th, 12th player isn't that far off from being in the actual rotation, right? So that means they're going to give a little bit more extra in practice. They're going to be competing harder. They're going to try to learn that playbook a little bit more to give themselves an extra wrinkle, right? And so with using your depth properly, you are not overexerting players. And one thing that the Bulls have done, when you look at it, we've played players a lot of minutes on this team. Now, not to Tom Thibodeau level of minutes. So the Bulls franchise overall has improved in that area. By the way, shout out to my jacket. This jacket's fire. I forgot how good this jacket looked. I think I've worn it once since I got it. It's a good jacket. It's a good jacket. But with that said, man, just helping this team avoid. We've had a major injury every single year that this team is, this version of this team, well, this is a new version, but since Billy Donovan has been here, right? You look at the first season with Billy Donovan here. Laurie missed a bunch of time. Zach LaVine missed a lot of time with COVID at the end of that season. Really anything in his control, right? Then in the second year, of course, that's when Lonzo, Zach went down. We lost Patrick Williams for a little bit of time as well. The third season of this team, Lonzo was out for a long time. We lost Zach. Like, we've lost a lot of time with this when it comes down to it. And I think that is something that I hope is a byproduct of us being a deeper roster this year. I almost said going deeper, giggity, but I try to avoid the no Bobby moment. So, but going deeper into our rotation more consistently, I also hopes keeps this team a lot more healthy, right? And helps us avoid some of those nagging injuries. Like the major ones, you really can't avoid. Those are freak things. You really can't avoid that. But the little nagging injuries, right? So now if a player does, hopefully is avoiding pulling a hammy, right? Or having dingers or things like that, right? And if they do, because we're going deeper into our roster, it just makes things a little bit easier because we now are seeing more players more regularly. So that means that they're ready. Right. So whereas in prior years, you go from a player like Julian Phillips, who didn't play at all the first 15 games, really, to all of a sudden needing to be played when Torrey Craig went down. Like, you're staying in that rotation a little bit better. Right. And you're just staying on top of things a lot better. So I just hope that that's a byproduct of this team. I hope that continues and that that the players stay engaged, the players stay doing what needs to be done. Right. And I think I've already talked about how going deeper, no giggity, going deeper into this rotation is going to help us always be able to like throw a lot of different looks out there, be very adaptable to what we need out there at times. Now, we don't have a lot of adaptability to defensively. Like, this is a team that's going to look towards Ayo Dosunmu, Patrick Williams, Julian Phillips if he plays, Torrey Craig, to be really, really sound defensive players for us, right? Now, you still want Kobe to play solid defense, which he did at times last year. You still want Zach LaVine to be locked in defensively. You want to hold out for some hope that every at least 25th game, Nikola Vucevic is going to play a little bit defensively, right? Your boy says Torrey Craig is definitely going down. That's crazy. But you just hope that this team is going to be able to do enough defensively. We were a team over the last 3 years that we had to hang our hats on our defensive identity to a degree because offensively, it was just old school offense, right? Now this is a team that if you can just be slightly below league average defensively, I don't need this team to be top 10. I don't need them to be top 12. I'd say if you can be top 20, if you can be between 19 and 22 defensively with this team, with the brand of offense and how fast we're going to play, how much shots that it looks like we're going to get up, that is going to help you. That's going to help you, right? Flockavelli in here. Great. We have to be active and disruptive in defense because that room is going to be the barbecue chicken. Yeah, I mean, listen, you got to be sound defense. You got to communicate defensively as well, right? And I did not mention Lonzo when I talked about players that are going to be key to our defense. Lonzo Ball is definitely going to be key to our defense and when he's out there, for sure. So I think that's a big part of this team. You just have to, and when you are going that far into your rotation, right? You just want guys who are just locked in. This is most of defense's effort, right? And that doesn't mean it's going to stop you from getting cooked one-on-one and things like that. But if you just have a team that can commit to giving effort every single play defensively, if you can just have that, we've seen it before. We've seen it. Look at the Pacers. That team was trash defensively. They gave up 124 points per game, which is oddly enough close to what the Bulls gave up in preseason. But you just have to be locked in. You have to be locked in defensively. You just give that consistent effort on the defensive side of the ball. It changes so much for you, right? You got to communicate. You got to give effort. You got to stay locked in defensively. That's it. Team defense. Because one-on-one defense, we're going to get cooked. We're going to get barbecue chicken. And I tell y'all what right now, for those that think that Jalen Smith is all of a sudden, go and look at Jalen Smith defensive analytics and compare it to Nikola Vucevic. You'll be like, oh, we really don't care about defense. Jalen Smith does some more things like blocking. He's a little bit better of a rim protector, and he's more active. I'll say that. Jalen Smith is more active, but it's the same result, right? It's like if you just flail your arms a little bit but don't move. Like, yeah, you look like you're doing something, but you ain't doing nothing. Because Jalen Smith is also very bad defensively. And so the only defensive big we have really is Adama Sanogo, and Billy Donovan isn't going to play him. But overall, I just hope that us going deeper into the roster, us utilizing our roster much better than what we've had over previous years, it just helps us get overall better results in some of the areas that we're really going to need it at this season. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on that down below. All right, we're going to get into the last message from one of our sponsors. That one is Gametime. And on the other side of that, we're going to talk about the fact that Brian Windhorst said there was no real meaningful extension talks between Josh Giddey and the Chicago Bulls. All right, y'all. We want to thank you guys again for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, making this part of your day every single day. But we also want to talk to you guys about Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, Gametime is not just about games. They got comedy, theater, every live event, anything plays, anything that you can want, right? Comedy shows. They got everything that you can want over on Gametime. So you guys don't have any excuse to be stuck in the house all the time. That's why she don't like you, because all you do is stay in the house and watch sports. Go out, help get some activity in. Gametime will help you with that. Plus, with their all-in pricing, if you toggle in all-in pricing, the feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You ain't got no excuse to be broke. And Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find seats in the same section for less. And that's That's one of the best and most flexible coverage in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. It's game day for the Chicago Bulls, by the way. Shout out to Gametime for sponsoring the show. But we want to get into this last thing that came out. This came out early this morning, and that was from Brian Windhorst. Take this with a grain of salt or not. Brian Windhorst clearly has a lot of salt in his diet, retaining a lot of water there, but that's not on me to judge. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm in my weight loss journey myself, so I'm going to shut up. But with that said, Brian Windhorst came out and said that there were no real meaningful contract extension talks between Josh Giddey and the Chicago Bulls. Now, this depends on how you look at the word meaningful, right? Meaningful could mean that they didn't get anywhere. There was no real offers made, more preliminary talks. It could also mean that they didn't really talk about it at all, right? It comes down to those type of things. And the thing is, either way, it all leads to I don't care if they had meaningful talks, non-meaningful. I don't care. No deal got done. And it's the right decision, I think, for both sides, to be quite honest with you, right? Like, Josh Giddey has an opportunity now to prove it, which we've talked about. The Chicago Bulls get a full season to look at him in their roster, in their building, with their coaches. They get all that, right? And so the fact that there was no meaningful talks, okay, cool. It's a buzzword. It is what it is. Like, nothing got done. It's easy now to say that there's no meaningful talks. It's easy now to say what did or did not happen because we know the result. Nothing came of the deal. Even if they did have meaningful talks, nothing happened. And ultimately, could that be a distraction this season? It could be. I, for one, hope that Josh Giddey uses it as motivation. Use it as motivation to go out and prove yourself. Use it as motivation to prove that your 2022-23 season, where you averaged 17, 7, and 7, basically, wasn't a fluke. Use it as motivation to go out there and be one of the best playmaking guards in the game of basketball. Go out there and use it to prove and motivate you to go out there and mesh with your teammates. Get the best out of Kobe. Get the best out of Zach LaVine. Get the best out of Patrick Williams. Because listen, If you can get the best out of Patrick Williams, that alone may be worth $30 million because we've had everybody talk to him. We've had Peter Patton. We've had Dribble Too Much. We've had sports therapists. We've had Gandhi. Everybody's talked to Patrick Williams. If Josh Giddey is the Patrick Williams whisperer, it's worth $30 million. $30 million alone. That's just a bit of exaggeration. I'm exaggerating. It is what it is. Love me for who I am. Don't judge me for what I'm not. But I don't know why I'm in such a goofy mood today. But it's season opening day. Like I'm happy. My Bulls drip tonight for the game is going to be ridiculous. By the way, if y'all thought this jacket was ridiculous, wait till you see the game day drip from Haize. It's going to be ridiculous. But yeah. At the end of the day, no meaningful talk's cool. All right, cool. What's next? That's what the biggest thing here is. What is next? And what's hopefully next for Josh Giddey is a season where he's proven his doubters wrong and he's earning his next contract. And we're not having these stupid conversations wondering, well, is he worth X, Y? Adamantly, we should walk out of this season and adamantly be able to say who the hell Josh Giddey is. That's what we need to be able to say. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there, man. We'll see what happens. Apologies to Brian Windhorst for his salt intake joke, but I mean, the man's a little bloated. He's a little bloated consistently. Like it just, you can tell he retains a lot of water. Like it's just, it is what it is. Prayers out to Brian Windhorst and his water intake. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Bulls and making us your first listen every single day. And I've said this before. We started the Locked On Bulls newsletter. So make sure you guys are prepared for that because you already know your favorite podcast now, Locked On Bulls, has a daily newsletter. It's a one-stop ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Bulls newsletter written by me. Get a double dose, a triple dose, technically, if you also subscribe to Chicago Bulls Central. Get your triple dose of Haize. Triple dose. 3 of them. 3 pumps, no grind. Love you guys. Go Bulls. Make sure you guys stay in tune with us. I'll see you guys tonight for game day. See red, y'all. Peace.